Tapping in.
Are we live?
Who is lifting up love to the ladies? Nobody other than the certified lover boy, the king himself.
Why you pull up the Take Care album cover?
This is not the Take Care album cover. This is a shoot that he did. Lover boy shoot.
It looks just like the Take Care album cover.
And I think that is the intention of that shoot for sure. I think that is definitely the intention of it.
So if that was the intention of the shoot, what did you feel like was the intention of this album? Because the tone, more so than any of his previous projects, the tone of this album and the circumstances of it affected my listening experience a lot more than they have with Drake albums in the past. Usually Drake albums are just a little snapshot, just a whole different, Drake's doing whatever Drake's doing and probably letting us know what the next little artist sound wave is going to be. But this felt a lot more situated in the current moment. It felt a lot more tethered to what we've been hearing, and it felt different to me. It just didn't feel like anything we've gotten from Drake before, really. What did you feel?
I enjoyed this album, actually, man. I enjoyed this album off of first listen. This is definitely a Drake album that I ran back to more than I did to Views. I wasn't particularly fond of Views when I listened to it the first time. I wasn't particularly fond of Scorpion very much either. When I heard that, both of those gave me a little bit of an ear fatigue, and I wasn't really able to revisit them. But because it's Drake, you're gonna hear it, and if you are around beautiful women, it's gonna be playing. So that was something that naturally I always took the position of I will let whatever good Drake song comes from this album make its way towards me. There's some albums like that. There's some albums like, man, I can't wait to dive into this, and I'm gonna go into it. I'm gonna dive into it. And then there's other albums where you're like, hey, man, whichever music is good that's gonna come out of here, I'll hear that, right? This particular album, because we run a podcast, I was like, man, listen, let me actually give this a good listen. And I must say, I'm not a particularly massive Drake fan, right? As you can tell, but this album was very enjoyable to me. There was, I think, from the cover art, right? He is declaring himself the king of right now. I think that's what all of it is. He will infiltrate from a meme standpoint, from the music videos that he's doing. Way Too Sexy music video that came in now with Kawhi, that I think that's indicative of it. The cover art, like I said, he's saying, I am, y'all are my sons. And there's a lot of songs on this album that reference that. Poppy's Home, where it's just like, everything y'all are doing is things that I am doing. And I think on different parts of this album, that's what Drake's intention is to show that anything that these people think that they're doing, he is the king of it, and will do it from a viral standpoint, a trap standpoint, a ballad standpoint, whatever the case is.
And so I think I'm hearing from you that it's different than his previous projects. And you picked up on that as well, even if it just meant for you more spins, more rotation. And so what is that what you would say is different than his previous projects? He's more insistent upon letting us know who he is and where he stands in the game?
Actually, bro, honestly, listening to this album, because of what I expected from Drake, this was, to me, a very typical Drake type of album, right? You're gonna have many ballads. You're gonna have songs that are particularly dedicated to women, right? And then we're talking songs like "Fucking Fans." We're talking songs like TSU, if you will, which was a leak that I'm actually glad was able to make it onto the album. We're talking songs like "Race My Mind," "Get Along Better." There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of Drake singing to his female fans, which has always been the least part of Drake that I enjoy. But the part of Drake that I enjoy, I saw him do he did what he does. He gives us a few hip hop tracks that slap. He gives us a good hip hop ballad, usually with Weezy on it, which we always enjoy. But super dope, and many singing songs, right? But in this case, I found myself enjoying some of those singing songs a little bit better. Songs like particularly the Thames song, I thought that was super dope. The Poppy's Home, like I said, Champagne Poetry, the intro song was good before the switch down. Pipe Down is a slammer. I love that Pipe Down.
Yeah. So to piggyback on some of your points, I agree. I feel like this is the album where Drake is the most intentful about declaring who his place in the game, right? I remember listening to Scorpion and thinking, it's incredible how natural it still sounds for him to be making these hits. When I heard God's Plan, it didn't seem like, even if the music video was a perfectly planned, clout opportunity with giving away cash, like the records have really struck me as like making hits really comes naturally to this dude. Yeah. Right? And even if you got a little too much of Scorpion with Nice for What and all the singles that we got beforehand, by the time the whole double disc comes out, you're like a little oversaturated. It still felt really natural to me. Listening to this album, much like Nothing Was the Same, the first couple of tracks being very rap focused, like I got a little bit of Tuscan Leather vibes from the first two tracks on this album. Mm-hmm. And as somebody who really appreciates, my favorite Drake is scallop and wine, white wine, looking down from the penthouse, shitting on you niggas Drake, right? That calm, confident luxury rap is my favorite Drake. I'm thinking of Lemon Pepper freestyle, bringing it all the way back to like the Aston Martin musics. That is my type of Drake, especially when it's mixed in with the bars that are a little bit of condescending, but just the right amount of braggadocio and confidence. And so to hear the album open that way was dope, with the caveat that to me throughout this whole project, there was a little bit more convincing. It sounded like he was doing a little bit more of trying to say, I'm that guy, right? There was a little bit more, I'm the new Jay-Z, y'all. Acknowledge it. Whereas I've heard previous albums have just been like, I keep going. I keep going up. I keep ascending. It's crazy. And this one was the first time it felt like he was looking back for a little bit more of the recognition, a little bit more than he's getting. And
I mean,
go ahead.
Finish the thought.
I mean, but for more than anything, I just wanted, did you get that sense at all from it? That there's a little bit more of a little bit like, we've always known Drake to be playfully bitter and playfully jaded, but this, it sounded a little bit like, and maybe beefing with Kanye has had a little bit of that, a little bit of overlap where he sounds a little bit like, he's always been like, man, I deserve these flowers, but there's a little bit more, and fucking give them to me in this one.
He says it with those words, right? No friends in the industry. He says it with Love All, with the Jay-Z feature, which I wasn't necessarily too mad at. Not particularly my favorite Jay-Z verse. You know what I'm saying? But I'll still take it because it's Jay and Drake, and they do things well together. There was on this, there were a lot of moments that made me realize that Drake does things that only Drake can do. There's certain things that only Drake can do as a rapper that a lot of people can't necessarily do. You have that In the Bible song with Lil Durk and Giveon. That awkward flow that Drake catches on that's only something that Drake can make enjoyable, because it's not a particularly it's not a sonically pleasing sound, but because it's Drake on top of it, you'll be able to tolerate it more. It reminds me of when he did the Happy Birthday song. Like, I don't know another rapper that put a happy birthday song on their album and have that be as popular as it is, right? But that's what you get with Drake. But outside of that, man, it's to me it's him doing what he does exactly how he does it. And if consistency is any measure of greatness, then you have to give it up to him. He's putting out an album that's got some hits on it, put out an album that the ladies gonna love, an album with the features for the dudes that want the features. Everybody you want to see from a feature standpoint is there. Baby, Dirk, Jay, Travis Scott, Thug, Future, Savage, Thames, Wayne, Ross. I mean, that's who else would you need in, that's a quite a feature list.
I think you've really well kind of captured a lot of what I feel about this album. Is that anything before it dropped that you were saying you want from a Drake album, you'd be hard pressed to say it isn't here. If you prefer rapping Drake, if you prefer sing-songy Drake, if you prefer vulnerable Drake, if you prefer bragging Drake, it's all here. As someone who is hyper critical of hip hop and lyrics, there were some moments on this one where I felt like Drake traded that poignant relatability, especially like on songs like Emotionless on Scorpion, where he's just breaking down the culture of flying people out and dating and in such a way that is bitingly relatable or being bitingly unreachable on this album. The things that he says he's doing, to your point, you can't do, I can't do. We're not, and whether that's the way he's making songs or the type of talk that he's giving out, this was a double down on like, I am that echelon above y'all. I should be looked at as a GOAT, a legend. I'm not in competition with any of your favorite rappers. But there's something in that smacks of desperation, right? And if I can be as hip hop messy as I can be, there's something in this album by Drake that wants to put him in a space where when Kendrick says, "Smoking on your top 5 tonight," and I think that he is still very much a part of that. He is still very much contemporary top 5. He's made some very popular music, but nothing that puts him in that echelon of untouchable, right? In a way that Kanye's not there now, but Kanye has been there. And Drake's never had that status of exceptional musical artist of beyond his generation in the way that a Dark Twisted Fantasy gives it to Ye, in the way that a Black Album gives it to Jay, in the way that, we've seen some of these other artists transcend the conversations where even if they're not the hottest right now or the best lyricists right now, their place is cemented. And I think Drake is clawing and fighting for that when there are still artists like Kendrick that can expose a sensitive rapper and tuck him back in his pajama clothes. And artists like Ye, where there's this interesting beef where Drake is certainly higher than Ye is now, but he's not higher than Ye's ever been. And I think that that's where a little bit of the desperation in this album smacks.
That's controversial. You saying that as high as Drake is not as high as Ye has ever been? Is that what you're saying? The
Are you saying that? Do you disagree? Do you think that as at the peak of Kanye West's popularity, influence across musical genres, across fashion, across recognition as a name, Drake's a popular musical artist, but I don't think Drake's highest point of relevance, I think it's dwarfed by Kanye West's highest point of relevance.
I beg to differ when we consider that Drake got Artist of the Decade. Right now, what Kanye is an incredible.
Who gave Drake Artist of the Decade?
Drake got the Artist of the Decade award in 2020.
From who?
That was
from who?
From Billboard.
We was praising Billboard, but we were young. Now we look at Billboard like, is you dumb?
I get that, right? But like that's the same barometer that Kanye West will flex when he says that he's dropped more number ones than anybody else, right? Which is a flex that he recently brought up from Billboards. He's had more Billboard number ones than anybody else. That's a feat that Kanye recently just celebrated right now.
That's not what I'm.
But all I'm saying is that Artist of the Decade is been given to this man, right? Drake has been given Artist of the Decade. The difficulty about measuring Drake's greatness is that it's still happening right now. The question is, who's better, Kobe or LeBron?
I don't think it's the same conversation. And I'll double the question back on you. Drake, if Drake's peak and Kanye's peak occurred at the same time, who's more deserving of Artist of the Decade? If you can only award
if Drake's peak and Kanye's peak occurs at the same time, who's more? It's difficult to say because Drake is still in his peak, and the issue and the problem with the Kanye peak that you're putting up, right, is that you're taking Kanye's cultural influence now and grouping it into his musical peak, because those two things happened at a different time, right? You had a time where Kanye's musical peak and musical influence peak was at an all-time high, but then his fashion influence is dwarfed from what it is now, right? But now his musical peak is less than.
Take fashion out of it. Give me the between Drake and Kanye West. Give me the three most influential albums.
So with Ye, we're doing College Dropout.
Like if you had to pick three between both discographies, and you got to give me between, like, you have all of Drake's discography and all of Kanye's discography. What are the three most influential albums in that mix?
Now, let's be careful if we're getting into a conversation about discography, that's a different thing than peak stardom, right? Because what we're asking each other is peak stardom.
I'm talking about their peak, not in terms of their celebrity, but in terms of, their importance to the culture. So Drake makes a lot of popular songs, and you can pick any year over the past 10 years, and there's going to be a Drake song that is, you could argue, is Song of the Year. But I don't think you can really compare any point in Drake's career to what Kanye has contributed in terms of just the wave that came after 808s and Heartbreak. The wave. You know what I mean?
I get that. How many niggas started singing after Drake was singing? How many niggas started singing after Drake was singing, though? But for real, though, how many rapping ass, singing ass niggas happened after Take Care? Let's keep it real.
Okay, but the question always gets, who has influenced hip hop more greatly, Kanye West or Drake?
In what respect, though? Because Drake's influence on hip hop is still occurring.
That's fine. Take everything up until this day into account.
It's like
who has left? If we're talking about impact in hip hop, who would you say has had a bigger impact in hip hop, Kanye West or Drake?
I think it's very close. I think it's a lot closer than you want to allow it to be.
You had to pick one. If you had to be on one side.
Let me. I got a question. I got a question that's going to help us get to this answer, right? Who is more comparable to the GOAT, which is Jay, right? We accept Jay as the GOAT. We put Jay up there on the throne. Who you saying Kanye is more comparative from a artist standpoint, everything standpoint than Jay is to Drake.
Yes.
Which is the biggest artist over a decade, right? We're saying the biggest artist with consistency over a certain amount of time, because the only person that I see putting up the numbers that Jay's putting up, where there's hardly a miss over a long period of time, where he's a chameleon, where he can shapeshift into different sounds and countries and styles, pulling in Indian sounds, putting in this, putting in that, which is something that Kanye hasn't always necessarily done, now to his defect, right? Now to something that has hurt him. Jay and also at a time where a lot of the things that people didn't like about Jay are the things that made Kanye stand out, which is that Jay would take Jay takes flows. Jay tubs on pop sounds, right? There's an Indian verse Jay's gonna drop on it. There's an Indian song Jay's gonna drop on an Indian song. There's a what else did they say on Jay when they were doing the Bad Boy sound? Jay jumped on the Bad Boy sound on Blueprint 2.1, right? That's what a lot of people were saying. That's the criticism of Jay, is that he'll look at what's hot, take that, refix it, and then push things forward. Kanye's separation from that was that Kanye doesn't necessarily do that, right? Kanye won't go against that. Now that's hurting Kanye, but Drake does exactly what Jay's doing with that.
That's fine. But Drake and Jay-Z are more similar in personality and in their creative toolbox than Jay and Kanye. But as soon as we start talking about success, it becomes a different conversation. If we want to start talking about albums that have fucking shattered the bedrock of hip hop, we can kind of leave Drake out of that conversation and have a much more serious discussion about Reasonable Doubt, the Black Album, fucking, and Jay's discography, and Graduation, College Dropout, and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. If we're really talking about albums that people are talking about years later, people are talking about Take Care and talking about Views, but they're not in the same conversation as the Black Album or My Dark Twisted Fantasy. Now we can talk about brands from there. Go ahead. And we can shift to brands. We look at Hove's brand and what Hove was able to do with Rockaware, with Rock Nation, with all of that. And then we can look at Yeezus, and we can look at Yeezy and the shoes to the branding, right? We can look at artists that people have brought into the game. When you look at Jay bringing in a Beanie Siegel, bringing in a Kanye West. When you look at Kanye West bringing in a Pusha T. When you look at the Rockaware family, the Rockefeller family, the Good Music Collaborative, and then you look at OVO, these conversations ain't lining up. When you look at Jay's relationship with a Division or even a shattering of The Weeknd, that's a small fragment shadow of a Jay-Z and a Kanye West, right? It doesn't, there's a greater, you want to talk about longevity, then that's fine. But if you want to talk about Currency's got longevity, my nigga. Currency's been putting out quality music for a long time. Don't
do that, because it's different putting out good music for a long time and putting out and being the best for a long time. There's a big difference between those two.
There's a huge difference between putting out popular music for a long time and setting the tone in hip hop for a long time. Right?
Drake sets the tone in hip hop is what I'm saying to you.
To follow up on your comments, Drake hears what's coming next. Drake hears the Burna Boys. He hears the Block Boy JBs, and he goes and gets that. But Kanye determines that. Kanye sets the tone. Much in the same way.
Let me ask you. After 808s and after 808s, right? After 808s, what other remnants of Kanye's impact have we seen in hip hop?
I will go with the huge one of Death Grips. Death Grips is both influenced Yeezus, but their popularity and the grunge sound that has kids all the way to Earl Sweatshirt and JPEG Mafia from Yeezus is a huge fucking.
You just named super underground artists now. Because if we're talking impact, what do we mean by impact in hip hop? What are we saying about impact?
I'm talking about. There's like, you can look at Yeezus and you can look at a whole subgenre of hip hop that broke off that not necessarily Yeezus started, but that popped off because of the attention that Yeezus was able to bring to these industrial electric sounds in hip hop, right? These intermittent beat switches that have no bearing on the content of the song. We don't get a Brockhampton. We don't get an AG Club. We don't get like even Tyler's last two efforts without Yeezus, right? When we look at Drake, we can see, this artist is gonna blow. We can see, this sound that's taking Afro beats is gonna go crazy. But it's not the same in terms of who pushed the music. and who created what's gonna come next from it. Drake's really good at being the first person you heard it from, but Ye's really good at making it possible.
And the difference is that when we speak about influence, because my argument on top of both of these artists would be Wayne has the biggest influence over both of them. I'd say Wayne has the bigger influence than all of these people. If we're looking at what people are doing now, let's look at what people are doing now. Let's look at the same metrics that you're putting in. Who got fathered? Wayne fathered Drake. Wayne fathered Nicki. Wayne fathered the flow and style of all the hot people now on Drake's album are from Wayne, including Drake himself. Right? So I put Wayne.
Good.
I put Wayne on top. I put Wayne on top of both of that. But all I'm saying with the Drake Kanye thing, right, is do we accept that? Is Kanye a more influential producer or is he a more influential rapper? Because no one has sounded like Ye after Ye has done rap-wise. No one has taken Ye's sound like that. No one's bitten that really. But everybody sounds like Drake. I gave these niggas the verse and even the hook. That's why every song sounds like Drake featuring Drake. That's what he says.
Yeah. No, I hear that. And if you take the production out of Kanye, like music wise, influence, there's not as much to stand on. If you say Wayne, I would say Wayne and Kanye as influence is both inseparable and very comparable. When you look at where these artists are now, when you look at the Lil Uzis of the world, when you look at all of these artists that are blowing up now, it's a marriage between the dreads mumbling through these bars, but still killing y'all with the flows and the emotional beats, the different kind of electronic incorporated sounds that were built in by 808s and Heartbreak. Everything right now is Carter 3 meets 808s and Heartbreak, right?
And Cudi. You have to put Cudi in there because we don't get Ye without getting a Cudi. Also, at the same time that Cudi was dropping, Take Care, the first October's Very Own dropped, right? It dropped around that same time. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe so, right? So like, what I'm saying is that it is difficult to be able to say Drake doesn't have any influence when a lot of niggas started rapping and singing after Drake. A lot of niggas started rapping and singing after Drake.
I'm not saying Drake doesn't have any influence, but I'm saying if you are keeping the production in there, when you look at Kanye's influence on both sides, the production of high quality hip hop, like changing what it meant to have an overproduced hip hop song, right? When you talk about Just Blaze, you talk about Ninth Wonder, you talk about Kanye West. When you talk about taking hip hop to another level of grandiosity. And I feel like Drake has created a persona that a lot of people are trying to, capture and ride off of that wave. But when you speak about hip hop in its various stages, hip hop in the doors you're opening from taking Chief Keef's I Don't Like to one of the most recognizable hip hop songs in the world. I just think that there's a different level of influence that Kanye has had, even if we can both wholeheartedly agree that Drake's influence is higher now. Whole point is that Kanye's highest peak of influence, musically, creatively, culturally, I would say, has firmly put him in that space of being a legend, being unfuckwittable, despite all the nonsense that he continues to do and continues to say and continues to put out. I don't think Drake has created anything. Sure, he has a lot of influence, one of the most popular artists now, but I don't think
of all time.
Sure, but I don't think Drake has done enough to put himself in that untouchable bracket, and I think he's feeling that.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Being the most streamed artist of all time, being the most popular artist of the decade, artist of the decade, being Beyonce, being Rihanna, like being transcending hip hop and establishing himself as a pop phenomenon. and then being able to still dominate the hip hop markets and dominate both those things, making it okay for hip hop stars to be pop artists. Like the influence of
credit right now. I don't know about all that.
it's true though. We're talking about the accolades that we're seeing.
Pop stars to be pop artists. I don't know about that.
How about this? Hip hop now is the most profitable genre of music.
You know who I put that on?
The biggest.
I put that on 50 Cent. I put that on 50 Cent before I put that on.
Hold on now. Let me ask the question. If hip hop now is the most popular, is the most profitable genre of music, and the last decade has been dominated by this person, Drake changed the way that Apple contracts are signed with music, like how live streaming, real shit. They say that all the time, that he changed. He's Jordan to the salary cap for streaming. He is Jordan. He changed the scale in which people measure music. That's what they credit him with, right? So,
but if you want to talk about like streaming numbers and all of that stuff, then like, yeah, I don't have the numbers. I can
general accolades.
No, not general accolades. If you want to talk about how many people are streaming his music in today's day and age, then like, yeah, that's fine. But College Dropout dropped when you had to go to the store to cop that mug on CD 3 times. That's a different level of commitment than opening my phone and seeing, oh, now I can listen to Certified Lover Boy. So for half of Kanye's career to have existed in this physically dominated space, some of the most influential aspects of his career, I remember buying Graduation on the CD, right? So streaming wise, Drake is the GOAT of streaming, no argument there. But maybe I'm audience, let us know, because I would love to have some other input into this conversation. But yeah, I would just say that Kanye West has, if you want to talk about where rap is in terms of being the most popular music genre in the world right now, I don't think you get there. I think it's much harder to imagine a world where hip hop gets there without Good Life, Jesus Walks, and everything that's on Kanye's albums than it is to imagine that, you know, as popular as Drake's music is, that it pushed hip hop to get there. I don't know, man. I think if not to flog a dead horse, like they would say in Scotland, right, is if we look at artistical accomplishments and artistic heights in hip hop, I do agree that the height that Ye hit with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, from a creative perspective, from a sonic and delivery perspective, is a height that I don't think anything that Drake has right? I want to be able to even credit Ye with the introducing sampling into hip hop, but then we have to consider Dilla, we have to consider Liv, we have to consider so many different things that precede that sound. He did it to a different level, but there was a whole architecture of being able to sample that existed that allowed Ye to be able to push to do what he did and then popularize that sound for a particular time. At any point within the last decade, Drake's sound has been the sound of the time because he's the biggest artist. Now, if Kendrick was as active, maybe it's a different conversation regarding impact and whatever the case is. Because when we start bringing Kendrick in, then that conversation even becomes more embarrassing when we talk about the influence that Kendrick has, right? But like, that's where I put the differences, man. Is that artistic heights, Ye tops Drake, but when it comes to popularity and influence and cultural. And then hip hop dominance. Hip hop dominance, I think, is the biggest thing. It's the dominance of hip hop. It's unquestioned who's the biggest artist right now. Yeah, it's definitely
has been for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely Drake. He's been the biggest artist for a while. Yeah, it would be really interesting to be able to compare the fervor of Backpack, Kanye Bear, Kanye had niggas wearing window shade sunglasses in public, my G. Of various multicolored. The
That's a
different,
good point. That's a good
and you
point.
could buy those in J.C. Penney. You could buy those at the gas station. You could, and that is just Kanye. So culturally, there's still a conversation to be had there. We hope you guys join into that conversation. I think we've spent a great deal of time on this. Although you did bring in sampling, and Drake has been getting in a little bit of trouble for that R. Kelly sample on the record, TSU. But it doesn't seem like you want to get too much into that. We spent a good deal.
Nah, that's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying at all. But yeah, listen, people. This is called carefully curated content for your cranium. Sometimes you have to take positions in order for the sake of the content, and you see how we do it over here, man. Who else is giving y'all this type of Drake v Kanye? They still talking about beefs. We talking about real important topics. So tell me, sir, from an official ranking standpoint, what do you have? What do you have this album?
Oh, good question. This Certified Lover Boy is on a first listen, it's a solid 3.5. And I feel really good about that considering I really liked the ESTG and I gave that a 3.5. And I reserve the right to change that to maybe lift it up. Again, I really like rapping Drake, but yeah, there's a little, like I said, it's a little bit more, it's like it's trying to be awe-inspiring, and I miss a little bit of the relatability. So 3.5 out of 5 for me. What about you?
I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5 as well. I think I gave that to a few albums that I enjoyed. I think 3.5 is the standard. Yeah, I liked it. You know what I mean? I do love No Industry Friends, Poppy's Home, Pipe Down, that Way Too Sexy, Champagne, that Yeba outro. Oh my goodness, that is such beautiful music. Drake has such a great eye at picking out these interludes and outros. That's super, super dope. 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Yes, sir. Listen, y'all feel strongly about Ye, Drake, music, hip hop, Yeezus sunglasses? Hit us up in the comments. You know what I'm saying? We're happy to revisit any of parts of this conversation that are reviewed and recommended by y'all, man. That's what this whole segment is about. It's recommending what we think is cool and reviewing. You say we should get into. We could even revisit that Drake R. Kelly sample if any of y'all that are listening want that content. But we gonna wrap it up because we know.
We know
y'all got a lot of choices, man. Y'all probably had to scroll past some of those choices just to get to this podcast right here. We are working real hard to make sure that every time you scroll on a Tuesday, we pop up. So we appreciate y'all being patient. We appreciate y'all rocking with us. We appreciate y'all celebrating this celebration of celebrations. You know what I mean? For appreciating us, rocking with us throughout this celebration of life and love and how good it feels to be black. Don't it feel good this way?
my favorite thing, y'all.
And we hope it feels good to be you. We hope it feels good to listen to all this new music that's coming out. Whether you're a fan of Kanye, Donda, Snow Allegra, Vince Staples, Isaiah Rashad, ESTG, 42 Doug. You know what I'm saying? There's something out there for you. We hope you listen to it while you are eating something delicious, hugging somebody you love, like that, from Edinburgh, from motherfucking Joburg, from wherever you at. Peace, love, water. We gone.